bring in 20 people and 30 in no time, and I'm sure each person did too.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This meeting this morning is a unique opportunity for us. The purpose of this meeting is to examine the mission of the University of Texas system and to examine the directions for the future. It gives us an opportunity to examine within the University of Texas System Cancer Center our opportunities for the future, but also to examine our obligations, our responsibility, and perhaps most important, our capabilities. As you've looked at the program that's been presented before you, you can note that we're going to cover a vast variety of areas, some of which we shall not be able to deliberate upon in sufficient depth. In an institution such as this, a categorical cancer institution, the research and the education and the service are so intertwined that they cannot be separated. And further, it's apparent, I think, as we go through the day, examining our capabilities and our interactions with other schools, particularly the Graduate School of Biomedical Sciences, that we cannot separate ourselves from other health-related activities or academic institutions. As the nation is examining its past during this bicentennial year, I think that this is a particular privilege that we have an opportunity, and it's very timely, as we are beginning to move into new quarters, to expand our space nearly twice of what we've been living in the past. I think it's a real opportunity that we have now, today, to look to the future. I would like to pause for a moment now as we go into the program that's before you, because we have a very special person with us, and I should like to introduce this man to you. Many of you know him well. Mr. Walter Sterling is with us this morning, who is a regent of the University of Texas, but he has had a great interest in the University of Texas system through the years. His father is a native Texan, and his father before him a native Texan. And I think you all know that his father, Ross Sterling, was one of the governors of Texas. Mr. Sterling has been a businessman in his native city, home city of Houston, through the years. He's a graduate of the University of Texas Law School, and for us is well known for his work and his interest in health-relating matters, having served as a member of the board of the Herman Hospital next door. And I might add also his father served in that capacity before him. So it is great pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, that I introduce to you Mr. Sterling, Regent of the University of Texas.
Thank you, Dr. Hickey, Dr. Clark, ladies and gentlemen. It is with a great deal of pleasure that I am here this morning. I wish I could stay the whole day, but my engagements are such that I cannot. But as a regent, let me express this thought to you folks here at MD Anderson Hospital. We're very, very proud of the work that you have done here and the advancement that you've made in the study of cancer, tumors, and one of these days, and I hope it's soon, through the efforts of such people as you'll find some way to cure that dreadful malignancy. It is a thing that we need to do, and the research that you folks are doing here will contribute a lot to the final answer of how to cure it. Dr. Hickey, if you'll please excuse me, I've got to run on. It's a pleasure to be here. I've enjoyed being with you, and I can assure you that you will learn a lot because I've attended 2 of these sessions, one at the medical branch of the University at Galveston, and just the other day, the one of the Houston Health Science Center, the university, under Dr. Berry. And I know that you'll be interested and pleased in what you hear here today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sterling. If you can return at any time during the day, you will be very welcome and we'll be pleased to have you. But we thank you for spending this time with us. And perhaps we'll have a little of this stuff written, so we'll hand it and put it in your hand, and you can read it in the morning or in the evening or whatever time might be available. Thank you again for coming. The next person on our program is Dr. Arlie Clark, who is president of the University of Texas System Cancer Center and was the first full-time employee of the MD Anderson, having come aboard, I guess initially as the superintendent and then the director in 1946. I think that he is most capable of giving us an introduction I hope with a background of where we have been and perhaps his thoughts on where we should be going. Dr. Arlie Clark.
Thank you, Dr. Hickey. 30 years ago, we hung one of these things on our neck with the same gadget, and we're still having trouble getting it on. Maybe in the next 30 years, we can figure a short, quick way to get this thing around your neck without having somebody having to officiate. This is a most interesting morning to most of us. We would have liked to have had the whole 2,800 employees of the institution, or is it 3,200 now, here today to hear what they have made possible, along with the support we've had from the Board of Regents, the state legislature, our friends, the foundations here, and for that matter, the state and national support. But at this time, when we are increasing our facilities 150%, it is appropriate that the Board of Regents has decreed that we, along with the other units of the University of Texas, will review our mission and see what the future, where we've been, and what the future will hold for us. As you noticed by the program this morning, there are a number of speakers, and we thought at first that we would have a review of each of these discussions and suggestions for their content. But we decided that it would be good for everyone to express his own views from his vantage point and see what we came up with. And there'll be opportunity for discussion. I'll give a very brief review of the historical background of the institution for those of you who are not fully acquainted with it. Later on today, we don't know how many outside people will be here, and if we find that we are, and you have staff members that would like to come, it would be most welcome. The only thing that we need to do is to look to our outside guests to be sure that they have a place to be seated. Otherwise, it would be our desire to have as many people here as could possibly be spared from the day's work. We're very pleased that the president of the Texas, I should say the Harris County Medical Society is here. He's a captive, so we were represented well on that score. And Dr. Dick Eastwood has joined us from the Texas Medical Center and others from the center, and you're always most welcome, and to see what this facet of your outlook is trying to accomplish in this environment. Briefly, in 1940, the Texas Medical Association Committee on Cancer met with officials of the State Department of Health and discussed the dormant legislation of the 1929 authorizing a cancer, insane, and pellagra hospital to draft proposals for new legislation. This actually passed, and while we've pretty well relegated pellagra to a thing of the past, there is a certain amount of insanity associated with cancer, I understand. In 1941, February, independently, Representative Arthur Cato of Weatherford, Texas, his father had died of cancer, introduced to the Texas House of Representatives the House Bill 268 to establish a state cancer hospital and research laboratories, which hastened cooperative deliberation with the Texas Medical Association Committee on Cancer. I think it'd be very interesting to see this committee, and I'll just mention the names that were there. And it was Dr. James M. Martin of Dallas, who was chairman, Frank C. Bell of Fort Worth, Abner Ross of Lockhart, who's Raleigh Ross's older brother, and he's still living and practicing at Lockhart, Texas. Sidney Wallace of Fort Worth, Dudley Jackson of San Antonio, who many of you know and who worked with us many years, and Emmy Lott of Dallas. Dr. Holman Taylor, then Secretary of the Texas Medical Association. A determination to correlate the cancer hospital with the University of Texas was agreed by all concerned following the suggestion of Dr. John Spies, then Dean of the University of Texas Medical Branch at Galveston. Spies is remembered for various things, and this is one of them that I like to recall, that he had graduated, he had been with the medical union in Peking in the medical school there as dean before he came here in a roundabout way, had been at Memorial before that in New York, and had stopped off in India long enough to help them create the Cancer Institute in Bombay. House Bill 268 was passed, and it was finally settled at an appropriation of $500,000 in the Senate. Governor Leo Daniels approved the bill in June of 1941, and the University of Texas Board of Regents began to search for additional funds and a location for the newly authorized institution. World War II made construction impossible. The M.D. Anderson Foundation, created in 1936 by Mr. Monroe Dunway Anderson of Anderson Clayton and Company, a cotton merchandising firm here in Houston, solved the problem by making a generous offer. The foundation trustees had already considered, at the suggestion of various other individuals and organizations, the development of a medical center of excellence in Houston where none existed. The trustees proposed that the State Cancer Hospital and Division of Cancer Research be the first unit in the newly conceived Texas Medical Center, and proposed that if the institution were given a name appropriate to the memory of the late Mr. Anderson, the foundation would provide temporary housing for the Hospital and Research Institute, a site for permanent quarters within the Texas Medical Center, would match the initial state appropriation of $500,000 and would contribute to the funding of a permanent facility. While it was not until 1945 that the Texas Medical Center was officially incorporated, it, like many other things, were preceded by dreams of people and organizations and institutions. In 1942, the University of Texas accepted the proposal. In May of 1942, the Anderson Foundation acquired the 6-acre estate of the Oaks at 2310 Baldwin Street, which had been bequeathed to the Rice Institute by the late Captain James A. Baker. In August of '42, Dr. Bertner was appointed acting director part-time, and the name chosen for the new institute, the M.D. Anderson Hospital for Cancer Research of the University of Texas. 5 Bard staff members from the University of Texas Medical Branch in Galveston moved to the temporary quarters in December 1942. This was a research biochemical laboratory in the carriage house, a biological research unit in the servants' quarters, an animal facility appropriately in the stables, and we had then the old house with the library on the main floor and the basement used for the first radiation therapy activities. In 1943, space formerly occupied by interns and residents for 22 beds were leased from Herman Hospital for cancer patient care. If I remember that contract, it called for $6 a day whether the rooms were occupied or not. In return, the M.D. Anderson Foundation made a gift to the Herman Hospital of $50,000 for the construction of a new home for the displaced interns and residents. March the 1st, '44, the first patient was received in the outpatient clinic, which initially was restricted to Texans who were medically indigent and whose home communities had no cancer treatment facilities. All patients had to be referred by their physicians, and the plan was eventually to make the service of the hospital and clinic available to every Texas citizen, regardless of the ability to pay. August 1st, 1946, following the end of the war, the University of Texas Board of Regents searched actively for a full-time director. I was fortunate to be given the opportunity to help develop this great cancer center and become the first full-time director. I was given the challenge of planning the facilities for the permanent quarter in the Texas Medical Center and of raising the additional necessary funds. Recruitment of a permanent staff began immediately. The temporary quarters of the Oaks served as a pilot plant and the basis for comprehensive planning to meet the needs of the cancer patient in Texas and the Southwest by developing a cancer research and treatment center second to none in quality of function and educational activities. It was indeed a great advantage to be a part of the leading university of this region, in that we did not have to apologize for the education and research activity, as it was from the beginning part of the effort on an equal basis with our other efforts. A philosophy was evolved based on a standard of excellence in medical care, which would aim at constant betterment of existing practices through research in the fundamental life sciences. There was no other center for medical education and research in Houston at that time, and no cancer treatment and research center in the South or Southwest. Therefore, the Cancer Center for Texas was required to develop a comprehensive program from the beginning, to wit, research in relevant fundamental sciences and in cancer therapy. This required drawing on all therapeutic modalities and incorporating all of the special knowledge extant for cancer of the numerous anatomical sites, and developing an in-depth educational program to produce experts in oncology at every level: medical, dental, scientific, and allied health technology. The first and top priority educational program was in cancer detection, diagnosis, and treatment for the practicing physicians of Texas, as only 1 in 5 cancer patients at that time was surviving 5 years following treatment. Most cancers were being diagnosed at a late stage when they had already spread from the local site. Only 2 methods of therapy were available, and one of these, radiation therapy, was indeed in a most primitive state. Great promise for this therapeutic modality coincided with the advent of the development of radioactive isotopes after World War II and the development of the cobalt-60 teletherapy unit, which was done by members of this institution in cooperation with the Oak Ridge Institute of Nuclear Studies. From the beginning, the Anderson philosophy was to reevaluate or develop all modalities of diagnosis and treatment an ever-expanding program of clinical research while conducting more fundamental research in various life and physical sciences for a better understanding of cancer. Thank you, Robert.
You think that's water?
Its causes, mechanisms of growth and spread, and hopefully its prevention. Now see the first slide, please. Actually, this was the basic theory on which that we were projecting the program in this institution from the very beginning. We felt that if we had a theory, that we should have, first of all, basic scientists and clinicians working together, both doing research in their area and hopefully joining in applying it for the ultimate goal, which was the better care of the cancer patient. But we started with the theory that was involved and then developed through the bench activities and animal trials the necessary information to carry this on over into the human trials with the standard hospital protocol as the end result, and using medical records, epidemiology, data processing, publications, library, medical meetings to disseminate this information through education from research, education, and service. Lights, please. The ultimate wisdom of the legislature was in making the Cancer Institute a part of the University of Texas under the guidance of the Board of Regents. And because of broad medical and scientific scope of the activities, creating it as a freestanding institution rather than as a direct affiliate of a medical school. The success of the Anderson Hospital in its short history lies in the fact that it was the first, and at present the only, freestanding cancer institute unit of any university. Thus, its director was responsible directly to the Board of Regents through the president of the university, presently through the chancellor, for all aspects of its mission. It was not and could not have been developed as a part of a medical school, and the Board of Regents has assiduously preserved this cancer program on an independent peer relationship with all of the other medical units of the University of Texas. Slide 2, please. This is the privilege and prerogatives that I had in starting in this institution, and one that is now necessary to develop a program of outstanding quality, blending the many elements together of a cancer institute. And while there are many different ways that they have been formulated today, it does remain that we are the only one that started first as a responsible to a major university and not as and on a peer relationship with the medical units in that university. Authority over planning, program, and execution, staff appointments including faculty title, budget preparation, monitoring, and expenditure, space control and allocation, patient control, including disposition of professional fees. These are fundamentals for the success, and one that, when abrogated, will result speedily in the dissemination of the asset to other things and cancer, as laudable as they may be. Lights, please. Two essential aspects of a truly comprehensive cancer center are that the institution be staffed with full-time personnel who are dedicated to the solution of cancer problems, and that there is a multidisciplinary approach to these solutions involving basic research scientists and clinicians in a daily dialogue aimed at direct benefit to the patient with cancer. Although there is varied and excellent research conducted in every medical school, the school is obligated to concentrate on the education of undergraduate physicians in a wide range of medical problems, of which cancer is one. Very little educational time in medical schools is devoted to the myriads of problems of cancer therapy and research. It is not possible or even desirable for any medical school departmental chairman to devote a major portion of his or her time to cancer, yet superior cancer therapy and research involve complexities that demand full-time dedication. Education is a key facet of effective cancer management. Affiliation with biomedical academic institutions based on a broad scope of medical sciences is desirable. But autonomy of mission and administration for a categorical institution such as a cancer center is essential in the realization of their specialized goals. This need for autonomy is the explanation for the fact that no other cancer center has been yet built at this scope in a medical school setting. A long-awaited and welcome advance in many medical schools is the establishment of a Department of Oncology, where these departments are being established on a peer relationship with the traditional departments of surgery, medicine, neurology, etc. This arrangement can be effective for multidisciplinary oncologically oriented education only if personnel from the major clinical disciplines are included within the Department of Oncology rather than as consultants from other departments who still expect to maintain individual and independent control of patients and professional income. Cancer is the second greatest disease cause of death in the United States. It is increasing in incidence as our technology increases and forces greater and more rapid physiological adaptation to our environment. The field of oncology has rapidly and rightly developed into a medical specialty demanding unique skills and innovative thoughts to meet the special challenges. By the very nature of these medical and scientific challenges, a cancer center is categorical in philosophy and function, yet every medical specialty field is tapped and utilized in unique ways. No anatomical structure or tissue in the human body is immune from cancer, which in its various locations and stages is considered to be approximately 100 plus disease entities, each requiring unique management. To obtain the multidisciplinary approach so essential for progressively better cancer management, the Anderson Hospital eliminated economic competition for the patient. To obtain true interdisciplinary peer evaluation of a patient's diagnostic and therapeutic needs, all involved physicians must not be distracted by consideration of economics, and at the Anderson Hospital, professional fees are not allocated on a department basis as they are in most medical schools. In a comprehensive cancer center, the traditional departmental hierarchy must be secondary. Elimination of the Geheimrat system is fundamental to the concept of a multidisciplinary program. The educational environment of a comprehensive center is ideal for broad-based learning and research, even though the mission of the institution is primarily categorical. Undergraduate and postgraduate education in all categories, including nursing, dentistry, medicine, allied health sciences, and the basic sciences, can be offered because of the broad scope of problems confronted in the study of life processes involved in the transformation of normal cells to cancerous tissue. The affiliation of MD Anderson with the University of Texas Graduate School of Biomedical Sciences affords an opportunity for graduate students to acquire a multidisciplinary overview of the biological mechanisms involved in the complex problems of cancer and the normal life processes, to work with and under the guidance of scientists intimately and purposefully involved in their field of scientific interest, and become prepared to move directly into biomedical research and teaching because of their training in laboratories with specific medical objectives. The combination of a tumor institute and a hospital create an effective model or milieu for stimulating new ideas and affording an environment for their delineation, evaluation, and application. Both clinical and basic science laboratories are available for applying new knowledge to bacteria, cellular, animal, and human systems. The academic environment provides the mechanism for rapid dissemination of new findings, for rapid substantiation of their significance. The logical extension of this information flow is the introduction of medically applicable techniques into our health care delivery system through the mechanism of postgraduate medical education. These educational programs for practicing physicians are a substantial part of the outreach programs of a cancer institute. The newest disciplines which have been developed and the new applications of older disciplines are pathophysiology, molecular biology, molecular carcinogenesis, viral oncology, cancer immunology, cancer genetics, and radiation biology. The logical extension of technical advances in these fields of investigation will impact greatly on the solutions to and management of diseases other than cancer. Future plans include the use of cancer centers as models for the development of new ideas in other medical problem areas, anticipating the time when most cancers are prevented, controlled, or cured. A major Anderson Hospital program for the future is the adaptation of research and therapy to the myriads of problems of genetic disorders of which cancer is one, including birth and environmentally induced defects, endocrine abnormalities, metabolic, hematologic, and humoral dyscrasias. Slides, please. The national concept of comprehensive cancer centers, which have evolved from the National Cancer Act of 1971, have resulted in the formation now of total of 17 comprehensive cancer centers. There were 3 conceded to be comprehensive when the act was passed in 1971, of which this institution was one. But this gives you an idea of the educational value of an association with, and we're very fortunate here in this center to be affiliated with in various ways the 2 medical schools, a dental school, a graduate school of biomedical sciences, and a continuation division of education, nursing schools, allied health schools, and the School of Public Health. We feel that with this great advantage here on this campus that we can truly see a comprehensive cancer center developed to its fullest purpose and used for its fullest purpose in educational roles. Our affiliation with the dental school since our beginning here has been one of great encouragement and real pride, because we feel that with them we have one of the best dental programs and have created recently, subject to our staff's consideration, the Department of Dental Oncology between us, probably one of the first in the country. We think there's other opportunities here where that you have areas of other institutions of categorical development to utilize their facilities fully for the educational programs while they're doing a massive job of the care and demonstration of care of their own categorical patients. The regional hospitals then from this area either participate directly or through their staffs with the regional physicians in the state of Texas. Who are doing approximately 90% of the cancer care in the state, as we can do only approximately 10% in the 3rd largest state in the nation. And then the public participation is a very important area of education, which we're doing with the State Division and the National Division of the American Cancer Society. The next slide, please. I thought I hope that you can see the schema here of the educational exchange, starting with the doctor's office, and some of the more later programs we've just been started has to do with training some of his allied health people and nurses so that they can have a greater opportunity as the primary contact physician to think of cancer as a possibility in his patients as they go through in his daily care. And his local hospital activities, we have to find a way to carry the information that we glean from the patients referred to us in the cancer care back to both the doctor at his home base, the intermediary hospitals of small community and regional hospitals and the medical schools themselves, but, with their own contribution to this educational program through their training of their young doctors when the impact can be so much more effective. Next slide, please. The criteria for the comprehensive cancer centers as created by the Act of 1971 has a stated purpose for development, and which you all know and we've been spending the last few minutes enumerating, as for the solution of the cancer problem. It's through specifically the better care of the cancer patient that this total purpose is created. It's not just for research's sake, but it's for research for the solution of a problem. And for a problem that's one of the greatest mankind has to solve yet for his betterment and peace of mind. Interdisciplinary capability is essential for progress in this field, as this is such a widespread disease and has so many impingements on the life process. The environment of excellence in the basic sciences is a requirement. An organized cancer detection program to work with the community is essential. Statistical base for evaluating of results, including standardized disease classification for records, is a means of exchanging information on the progress, next slide please, between ourselves, local physicians, and the world at large. The leadership and development of community programs is essential to carry this information for the immediate application. The research base, fundamental and applied, and training coordinated with all other programs. Autonomy to integrate the programs with those of other centers in the nation and internationally where applicable. Next, please. Next slide, please. The administrative structure assuring maximum efficiency and sound financial practices are those that are enumerated to you that were delegated to the director. And sufficient beds for clinical research, and we've now interpreted that still further because the deficiency was so great in the medical centers that we have visited. There's some 80 that have asked to be for planning grants in regard to comprehensive cancer centers, but so many of them have only a modest clinical cancer research beds of maybe 5, 10 of the most that I think of were 20, and no beds, many of them, for the demonstration of interdisciplinary care of the cancer patients. And this is equally important for the future. Is that the last slide? Yes. The concept of the Comprehensive Cancer Center has come of age, not only in the U.S., but also around the world. Presently, an active international interest in this concept is manifesting itself. There were only a few centers in Europe, Russia, and Japan that really could be called comprehensive. The remainder of them have largely in Europe and most foreign countries have been generated by centers for radiation therapy. This was because of the lack of financial ability to mount the many multitudinous radiation therapy treatment centers in this country, which have been developed as part of the hospital milieu. Even when they did not have anyone to do the therapy, they still thought they ought to have a therapy center. Much more practical, the European have been, because of their limited finances and trained people, have established radiation therapy centers, but they have now realized that they must bring surgery more intimately into the decisions, and that two new disciplines have evolved. One is chemotherapy is really, perhaps even now, we would say that there are approximately 10 systemic cancers that have demonstrated the possibility of being cured. And then the newly burgeoning one, for immunotherapy that we're developing across mostly in this country, it looks like it has real means of activating the host to help defend himself against cancer. So we find that with the concept of the Comprehensive Cancer Center, with the interdisciplinary care and shared control of the treatment of the patient, that there's great demand for this in numbers of countries, and we're having to review this with them, both individually and as a member of the International Union Against Cancer, where there is a committee for the evaluation of the needs of the other nations in regard to creating comprehensive centers. And we have just in the past 2 months made a number of visits in regard to that. And for instance, a country such as Germany, some of the men that were here this past week you might have met, are thinking of building 10 in that state, in which none exist at present. There's 22 now in France, of which about 2/3 of them could be called, even though many of them are small, comprehensive in their concept. Japan has 2 or 3 others that are getting to this role, as the old concept of the cancer patient being controlled either by the surgeon or the radiation therapy have decreased, with the concept that the best care of the patient is a multidisciplinary one. There are many things that I would like to recount to you, but in order not to